Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. And what I want to do today is talk about making UI components in React. So here I just want to focus on like just encapsulating like a modal, encapsulating a carousel, things like that, and making them just kind of like their own reusable component. And I'm going to do a code sandbox, that way I can share the link in the video description for anyone who would like to take a look at the code. Okay, but yeah, let's kind of go through it. And again, pretty much you just have to kind of imagine sort of the essence of the thing you're building and sort of like what are the variables. Let me just move this camera a little bit. There we go. That's getting my good side. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna create a new sandbox. I'm gonna create a new React sandbox. And let's create first a modal. Okay, so let's see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this folder called components. And then I'm going to create a modal file, modal.js. Okay, when we think about what a modal is, again, it's just generally something that's going to have like, well, first let's just create the boilerplate. Let's do that first. Function, modal, then we pass in props, and it'll return an h1. That's h1. Hello. Let's export default modal. Let's bring this into app.js. Import modal from /components/ what am I thinking? /modal. Okay, cool. And then I'm just going to put a modal here for a moment. Okay, and I'm going to put some words inside of it. This is the modal text, and you'll see what I do with that later on. Okay, cool. And right now we don't see that because, again, whenever you put text in between the opening and closing tag of React component, that gets actually it gets absorbed as a prop called props.children. So it's not visible unless I make it visible. Okay, let me save that. Save all. Modal. Okay, so when we think about a modal, generally what's going to happen is we're going to have sort of two containers. So we'll have one div that kind of makes the whole screen black, and inside that there's another div that is sort of a container that that helps make things appear. Okay, so first let's just kind of get that modal image, and then we'll discuss like the visibility and toggling the visibility of the modal. Okay, so let's see here. Cool. So we're gonna have a div, and this one will be of class name. Well, actually, I'm gonna do inline styling. So say div, and then inside we'll call it a section. Just to have two different containers with two different names. /section. Okay, and then we'll have the /div. Okay, so there's going to be sort of like our general setup. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to expect that a lot of how this modal is going to work is going to be handled by props. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to destructure my props and just kind of destructure the props I need as I need them, which I can do by just putting curly brackets here. And I'm going to expect that I'm going to need the children prop. I'm going to want to grab, I'm going to have a visible prop, so we can determine whether this is going to be visible or not, true or false. It's so forth, but we'll deal with that in a second. I will use the children prop. So I'll put children right here inside the section tag. So now we should see this is the modal tags. Okay. Now, first thing I want to do is I do want to style this div. Okay. So I'm going to put a style equals double curlies, and then I can just start styling it. What I do want is I want the height. I want to say the background color. Background color's got to be camel case because we're in JavaScript, and it should be RGBA And I think it's going to be what, 0, 0, 0.7. Okay, so you can see that made it like this dark color, which is fine. But I want this to take up the whole width and height. So I'm going to say height 100 VW, or viewport height, actually, VH. And then width 100 viewport width. Okay, and you can see like there's some like this lack of this sort of margin or padding here that I want to get rid of. So just in case, I'm going to say padding over here. I'm going to get rid of padding. I want it to be 0. And then margin, I want there to be 0. Actually, I could probably just put that as 0 and 0. Okay. But you see there's still this little like margin. So that must be coming from like the body tag. So I'm gonna head back in the app, and it must be coming from this tag over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go find the styles.css, and I'm gonna get rid of this, and I'm gonna just kind of do a little mini like reset. So I'm gonna just use the all selector and just say I want there to be like no padding, 0, no padding, 0, and margin 0. There we go. So that way that takes up the whole screen. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back over here. So like there's like sort of like that dark text modal screen. Now I do kind of want this section div, which is inside this, or the section, to be sort of centered inside the div. So first let me give a style to the section. Style equals, okay, style equals, then we'll sit there and we'll say I want it to have a background color of, let's say, white. Why not? Okay, and then we're going to give it a height of 300 pixels, a width of 300 pixels. Now I want everything centered. I want this thing centered, and I want the text inside of it centered. So we're going to do the same thing for both. I am going to make this display. Now this is going to depend whether it's visible or not. So if it's visible, so if visible is true, then it's going to have a flex as its display, and if not, it's going to have none as its display, which now it's just disappeared. So what I need to do is head back to app and give it that visible prop. So I'll say visible equals true. Okay, and see now like the modal is visible. Okay, let me just save all for a second. Okay. So, and then when it's flex, I want it to justify content center, because I want that div to be in the center. And then I'm going to want to align content also center. Yep. I think maybe it's align items. Yep, there we go. Align items, good. And then I'm going to do the same here for the most part. So I will just copy these 3 properties. Only difference is I don't need this turn area, because this could just be flex. And then there we go. So whatever is inside of this will get centered, and you have this set up here. Okay, and you know what I could do is I could have some external CSS to do like CSS transitions and make it a little bit smoother, but we can deal with that at another time. And what I can do is like, actually, let's just do this. Let's make this class equal modal save. I'm probably, I do want to kind of do the transition. So I am going to go to my CSS file here, target the class of modal. Let me just make sure I typed it the same way I typed it. Yep, modal. And I want to say I want to have a transition of like 0.5 seconds. Okay. And what that just means is that when it appears and reappears, it'll transition a little bit. I might have to get a little bit more specific, but we'll cross that bridge. Okay, so now the thing is I don't want it to just be automatically visible. I want it to change visibility. So what I need to do is give it some state for that true. So we'll sit there and say, I need to import useState. useState. useState from React. So that way I can change whether it's true or false, but then when it's true or false, cause the component to re-render. Because again, React only re-renders when you update state. So in this case, I'll say const visible set visible equals useState, and then we're going to initiate it as false. Okay, and then I'm going to make this initiate as visible. Okay, cool. And then we're going to have, we need a function that toggles that. So I'm going to say const toggle visibility. And we're going to have a function that all it does is take, it says set visible. And just in case people like double click it, I'm going to use the callback version of set state where you can do this. I can just say take the existing state and say, hey, I want the new state to be whatever the return value of this function is. So I want the return value to be not the state. Okay. So basically all that's doing is saying return the opposite. So true will return false, false will return true. The beauty of this is just that way if like they double click it, it actually changes the state each time. You don't create this situation where you're making the exact same change to state if you click the button multiple times within the same render. Cool. So what I want to do, too many renders. Where did I make a mistake? I've created an infinite loop somewhere. Set, oh, I said equals. Oops. I need to write this as a function. Create an infinite loop, there we go. Okay. So yeah, so basically toggle visibility is a function that sets visible. Okay, so then what I want is a button so we can trigger the initial visibility. Okay, button, cmodal. Okay. And again, the cool thing is, like, I can determine what triggers any particular modal I want. I can use this modal component over and over again, and then have different triggers. It doesn't have to be a button. All I need to do is just make sure I pass it visible, true, or false to determine when this particular modal shows up. So modal, and you just attach the function on click equals toggle visibility. Okay, so now if I click the modal, does it appear? And it works. Okay, they didn't quite transition the way I would have liked, but we'll take care of that. So what I want is, okay, let me just think about how I want to do that, because like technically, would it toggle display? I don't think it toggles display. So really, what I would want is, Well, theoretically, what I would want to do is like create a situation where it's like transparent and then it kind of fades in, but I'm gonna let that go because I'd have to do some refactoring. But the point is it works. Now I just need a button for it to turn off. So again, what shows up in the modal is whatever is inside of the modal tags, because again, props.children. So I would just then create another button inside of here. And this one will just be close modal. Put a little BR tag to break the line. Okay, we'll do that. Okay. The BR tag doesn't want to do its thing. So what I'm going to do is I will wrap this in a div. So that way it goes onto a separate line. Still don't want to be its own line. Oh, because it's a flex box. That's right. That is why. So I used Flexbox for the styling, but I forget that it puts everything in a row. So in that case, what I want to do is change this back to flex direction and make that back into a column. Okay, so now when I see the modal, there we go. And if I hit close modal, the code disappears. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, and then I can, again, change the contents of what's here in the middle to change what the contents is of the model. So I could have like a separate state that changes what's in there and all sorts of different things. Okay, but yeah, that's all a modal is. Again, all it is just some divs that appear and unappear. And then again, basically what's determining the visibility is just this display property, which is being toggled off by this prop. So all I have to do to use the modal however I want is just toggle this visible prop. Pretty cool, right? Okay, now let's create a carousel. Save all. Okay, so let's create another one. Carousel.js. Okay, so function carousel props return a div that says carousel -div. And then let's export default carousel. Okay, then I will go load this up in the app. So import carousel from ./components. And again, doesn't matter what framework this is, like the same, really, or if there is no framework, it's the same pattern. Modal, this one will be carousel. HTML is HTML and CSS is CSS. Cool. So let's put the carousel somewhere. I'm going to put it above the modal button. Carousel. Okay, cool. So what I expect to happen is that this carousel component will get two props. Okay, one prop is going to be the slides, the array of actual, like, hey, these are the possible slides that you may choose from, and then a prop that equals which one to show. Okay, and I don't have to do that here technically, but yeah, let's do that. Okay, so it'll be slides and index will be the two and I'm going to expect that the array of slides will just generally be an array of objects with two properties. Image, so a URL to the image, and a link, which would be like the URL that that image should link to if someone clicks on it. Okay. Okay, so then what I would do is I would just say a href equals a href equals, let me think here, equals, well, actually, here's what I want to do. Const slide equals slides index. Okay, pick out the particular slide we want to show. Okay, and then basically what we do here is slides would be slides.link. And then in the middle we would have an image whose source would be slide.image. Okay. And then you have the basic, technically, what's this? It says cannot read properties of undefined yet because technically slides isn't defined yet. So what I'll do is I'll just put a default value of an empty object. So that way it just stops throwing that error. Cannot read property of undefined. Oh, yep, been away. This should be an array. And then this should default to 0. Actually, here's what we'll do. Let's actually see if this, just do a test. Slides, does slides actually exist? If slides is a thing, then do that. If otherwise, just make it an empty object. Okay. Nope, still doesn't like it. Slides is an empty object. Cannot read properties of undefined, but why would it be undefined in that case? Let me refresh. Oh, because I did slides, not slide. There we go. Okay, cool. Okay, so now we have a thing that should display an image, and again, I haven't styled it all that much yet, but first we want to get it like functioning. Like first I'm not gonna even think about styling until like I get the general gist of what it should be doing. Same thing with like that modal. I got the basic functionality. Now I'd go spend more time and make it prettier and do all the other stuff. But again, the point of this video is more like functionality, just kind of thinking. There's a bunch of ways you could do this. Like I could have put like the controls for the modal inside the component and really made it purely self-contained. But I wanted to do it that way because it gives you a little bit more flexibility to use it in different contexts. And then you could use it within another component that does encapsulate those other details. Sometimes you want to build your components as building blocks that will help you build other building blocks. Okay, so carousel. So really what I want is an array of images. And then I need a state for the index. So const index set index equals use state 0. Okay, and that we do have, so I can pass that down. Index equals 0. Index equals index. Okay, now I just need to create an array of images. So I'll just const slides equals an array. And again, each one is an object with two properties, image and link. And link, I'm just going to always make it just, go to https://alexmercedcoder.com because, cheap plugs. Why not? Okay, and then the image, let's go find some images. Let's go to images.google.com. And let's look up pictures of cheese. Okay. That's some cheese. Copy image address. There we go. Okay, and then let's just copy that 2 more times. Okay, and I want to just change up those images a little bit so we can actually see it. Transition between these images, copy image address. Okay, and then image, just block of cheese here. Copy image address. Cool. And then I would want to pass in the slides. So slides equals slides. So technically I should be able to see the first image, and yep, there's the first image. But you see that's kind of big, so I may want to like style that. So I'm going to come back to my carousel, and I'm going to put in a style prop. I could do this with CSS too, but I'm going to just do it using inline styles. Equals boop, boop. And what I'm going to want is width 200 pixels. Okay. Width 200 pixels. And height 200 pixels. And then what I'm going to want to see is like, it's not a perfect fit. I mean, that one's not so bad. But I usually like to make sure that the object fit property is set to cover, because it'll make sure that all the pictures look a little bit better. Okay, so for that one's kind of fine. Okay, cool. So we hit save, file, save all, save everything. Okay, so now we just need to get it to like change images, which just means updating this index state. Okay, so I just need to create a function that does that. Okay, so const update index. Okay, and we'll just say equals a function, and all the function does is set index. Well, actually, we need to do some logic first, so I'm going to use curly brackets, and we're going to just say like if index plus 1 is greater than slides that's equal or greater, and slides.length, then what we'll do is we'll set index to 0. If that's not the case, because then you would have gone beyond the final photo, otherwise we will set index to index plus 1. We'll add 1. Okay, so there's the update index. So now I just need a button that does that. So I'll just say next slide. Button. It doesn't have to be a button, but I'm going to do a button. Next slide. Slash button. Okay, and then I'm going to attach that function to the button on click equals update index. Okay, so now theoretically what's going to happen is that when I click on this button, it's going to run the update index slide, which adds 1 to the index, which then re-renders the component and passes on the new index to the carousel component, which should show the next picture then. And see, it goes back to the beginning, because once I get past to that final index, it knows to go set it back to 0, and it goes back to the beginning. So now I can keep adding more pictures to the slides array, and the cool thing is I can use this component again with a different array. Long as the array has the data in the right format, I could use this carousel component over and over again with just different sets of images and links. And again, these are all clickable. Again, it's not like beautiful. The next step would be for me to like more beautifully style this carousel or this modal, but the idea is that you can create them in a reusable way. Like in the modal, the actual contents of the modal are not set. How I turn that modal on or off are not set, but I created it in a way that I can use that same component to then get creative with how I turn it on and off, or what the contents are inside the modal. Same thing with here with the carousel. And again, these same principles can then be used if you're building this out in Vue, Svelte, Angular, Solid.js. It's the same principles, just the syntax may be a little bit different, but essentially, like, you know, what things are you passing down as props, and sort of how you think through all that is generally going to be exactly the same, except instead of like props.children for like Angular and Svelte, it's going to be slots. For Solid.js, it should be, well, for Vue, Svelte, and Angular, you're going to be using slots, and then for Solid.js, you'd be still using props.children. But yeah, that's a thing. So I'm going to put this link to this particular code sandbox in the video description, so that way you can refer to it if you'd like. Okay, and again, you can always head over to devnursery.com. You find a lot more content. Okay, so I got my video tutorials here, lots of them on like anything you can think of. Okay, so no shortage of learning to do here. You can always join the Slack and Discord communities where, there's always cool people to meet. You can check out my blog tutorials where I have tutorials on all the things. Okay, so do check in. If you like the video, do hit like, little thumbs up button. Do subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Okay, so that way I know that you like the video or things you'd like to see me cover in other videos. You could also message me on either the Slack or Discord channel with your suggestions of videos I should cover. Otherwise, have a great day and enjoy. And also subscribe to my podcast, WebDev 101, on your favorite podcast catcher. So I'll see y'all later.